Okay, good evening, everyone. And I am very excited today about this special session that Read Pakistan has conducted. We are having it from our platform. This is Fatima, the Senior Vice Chairperson of Read Pakistan. And today I've called in a very darling, very dear friend of mine. She is an amazing human being, not because I'm not saying it because she's my friend, but I'm saying it because I know it for a fact that she is a super amazing person. It's been a very long time that I know her, and she's a literary person. She is somebody who has a scholarly approach. Not just that, I have to tell you that she's well learned. She is Fatemeh Kamali Sharani, and she's a Iranian German scholar. To place a cherry on the top, she did her PhD at the University of Augsburg, Germany. She published her first book, Does Intercultural Dialogue Matter? And now this was published in 2019. Since that time, Fatemeh lives in Islamabad, which is an amazing thing because, then I can see her anytime I want. She is a visiting researcher, fellow of the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, and also visiting faculty member of School of Political Science and International Relations, Qaid University. Okay, so her main fields of interest are, of course, intercultural dialogue, cultural diplomacy, and women. So it's going to be a wonderful time. It's me, Fatemeh, and the women topic. No, it's going to be Read Pakistan. Hello, Fatemeh. How are you?
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Fatemeh. Fatima, you are Fatima, but I'm Fatemeh. So tonight our friends see discussion between two Fatemehs. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to be with you. This is really wonderful that I'm still among those that you feel that I'm enough reading, because I'm very critical to the subject of reading, and I'm not counting myself as a good reader. But still, I'm so happy that I had a chance to join you. And Fatemeh, you are introducing me so fantastic that I just fell in love with myself. Thank you.
You're a person to be in love with. Trust me. I don't know how many people know you in person, because I know that, well, reading is one thing that you choose very critically, and friends as well. So I know this for a fact that, yes, you might just, have very limited number of friends, even though you're socially so well knitted. And I know this, but I really, really appreciate number one, two things which are very commendable. One, that you have never disconnected yourself away from Read Pakistan and the social cause. And number two, I just completely say wow, and I'm awestruck by that commotion every time I meet you, and I see that fervor and that love for Pakistan and for being here. So for today, especially, Fatemeh, I know I can grab you anytime, but today was a session that I really wanted to have. And you know how lost I am these days? Still, I'm so grateful to you that you have joined us here. And so, Fatemeh, thank you, sweetheart. Well, okay. By the way, I just want to add, there are a lot of people saying hello to you. There's Muhammad Israr saying two Fatimas. Okay, so it's Fatemeh and Fatima. Okay, and then a lot of people are saying hello and welcome to you. That list actually includes Muhammad Hassan Ali, Alim Wari, and so we would just be like I sort of introduced you prior to our session, that we would also be having a lot of questions from people who are going to be live with us. So we have Umar Tariq, Emil Khan, and all the Hafiz Ehtisham. So a lot of people are saying welcome to you. So very, very welcome to you, Fatemeh. Okay, I'm going to thank you very much. And Umar Tariq is also also writing here. Welcome, ma'am. It's great to have you around. I think he's made a he's written great, and then a big heart, which is something.
Thank you.
Okay. So, okay, Fatemeh. So I'm going to start with, let's see, the topic was for today, we had a small discussion over this, and we both wanted to have reading in the role of reading in changing cultural patterns. Well, because I know that you have quite a grasp over this subject, I want you to give the maximum. But at the same time, I want you to start with the Iranian culture of reading. Just say a few lines about the reading culture in Iran, and then we can move forward with the topic.
Well, culture of reading in Iran is still have, I would put it like that, still have a lot of potentials to be improved. I think weekly is like 12 minutes each Iranian. Iran has 85 million people. Of course, we have to look which methods are measuring reading of people. But still, I think that despite the fact that Iran has a huge middle class, educated people, so the rate of literacy in Iran is above 80%, and even the gap between women and men literacy is not that much. So, like women a little bit to 80, and the men above 80. This is the literacy rate in Iran. So the expectation to Iranians is much more regarding to reading. With that, I want to say mostly people focus on their academic or school reading, or are not going beyond that. But also, what one of the positive things about reading in Iran is that translation of the contemporary novels, contemporary discussions on social science, on medication, on engineering is amazing. If you go to Tehran, and specifically to the street of Inqilab of Iran, you see a lot. I mean, you cannot count it. You see a lot of bookshops, and you just go and. For me, always is a very, very nice tour in Tehran, in the Inqilab Street, opening each door of each bookshop and finding the shelf of translations, taking the last book of Haruki Murakami, for example, or the last book of, I don't know, a British novelist. This is really amazing, and that shows that how Iranians are in love with the word literature or their word books.
That's great, because I see while listening to you, I personally feel that this is an area where Pakistan really lags behind, because we don't have a lot of books in Urdu. When we want to have a lot of literature, translated even, we wouldn't find too many. And I think this is one side where we really need to focus upon. But I think there's a very, very positive thing that for Iran, that's amazing, because if Iran has so many books translated into Iranian language, and then so the proliferation of reading is definitely going to be 5 times, 10 times more abrupt as compared to the developing countries. So I think, yes, this is amazing, Fatemeh, because this is what I've always heard from you, that reading is a very, it's taken as a part of your culture. But I wanted other people to know and understand that as well. Okay, so yes,
just one, because you are also very critical to Pakistan. I'm critical to Iran. I have been very much amazed in Pakistan, in Islamabad, in Lahore, in Karachi, going to bookshops and seeing most of the books. The latest books in the world. Oxford, Routledge, in English. That is the gap in Iran. So I'm definitely accepting your critic. It should, we have to have rich source of Urdu language, Pashto language, Punjabi, Shina. Pakistan also is a super multi language linguistical country. But in Iran, we don't. As far as I know, and I yearly visit Iran, we have that gap. So the library, the shops are not that much rich in terms of selling and offering the latest original books of the world. In the libraries like University of Tehran or National Library of Iran, you can see. But still, this is not something offered to all the people in the Strait of Engelab. So I just wanted to add this gap of the latest books of the world in Islamabad, but the lack in Tehran.
Wow. Why do you think that gap has come? Do you think that you're going to blame the publishers of Iran that they're not supporting the cause? Or do you think that it's the government policy that does not really allow? But I'm not going to get into the politics side of this, but still, the literary...
We cannot leave that point. I will be quick on that point. I would say, firstly, the culture, the history. Pakistan being part of this big region of subcontinent of India, one of the main languages has been English, right? So the elite and educated people here need and are used to read English, which is not the case of Iran. In Iran, Farsi, I think for centuries have been the main language of the country. So I think that came to kind of, tradition that mostly books are available or will be translated to Farsi, which is coming from, after, again, history. After Islam, after converting to Islam, this civilization flourished through translation from Greek and Arabic to Farsi, making a new culture of philosophy and literature and medication. But still, we have to update ourselves to the new needs of our readers in the society. And Iranian readers right now are people who are reading in English. I think this gap can go to the policy, so policy making in Iran. I think, but also it can go to the economic level, and the sanction in Iran is very high. So now the price of paper is very high. Importing books in Iran is an issue. We can go on.
But I think that's very nice and very quick of you to amalgamate both. And I think both of them must be playing quite a role in Iran. Okay, now you talked about literature. And I was just recently reading this article of yours and about this very renowned singer, Shajarian. And I think you should say a few words about him as well, because I see the passion that you have for literature and for social work. So I see quite an amalgamation over there. I want you to share something with our viewers in that case too.
Thank you very much. Well, Shajarian has been, Muhammad Reza Shajarian has been one of the master musicians of Iran, traditional music. And I had this feeling that I owe to him as an Iranian, as a person who has really, my heart is always beating in Iran. So it's Iran is not just a country, this is also a culture inside me. And I think this man has been so dear to Iranians, not just as a singer, but also as a national icon, as a voice of free Iran. And this is not in political sense. He was really beyond political issues. He always was saying that he is not political, and doesn't have any mood of doing political works, but actually staying by the people who were not satisfied with some policies of Iranian government, were protesting for their rights. Standing by them by itself has been a political action. And for that, he did not care that he would lose some, some credit for getting allowance of holding concert in Iran or selling his albums, going through this risk of coming under pressure, but still he stand by the people, and I think that would not be forgotten in the history. So music would not be forgotten.
Yeah.
Cultural work would not be forgotten, but being the voice of freedom, which Iranians are looking for it during the last century. Even from 1904, the constitutional revolution, and then Islamic revolution, and right now still we are struggling to get the freedom that we deserve. I think he really made himself a national icon, and that was I think I could, of course, as an Iranian, I liked him, but reading actually books on social science and cultural studies enabled me to analyze why he is so dear. Because we have a lot of musicians in Iran. Why Shajarian is so dear? And this is exactly because because freedom was not part of his art.
Yeah.
He was actually singing the freedom. And these things were on part of my analysis and my part on life of Shajarian.
And that's so amazing, because you don't find these kind of leaders anymore. I mean, and not just about leaders, it's about people who think larger than life, who think larger than themselves. And I see that this thing is lagging all over the world. It's just not about Iran or Pakistan, Fatemeh. It's about everywhere in the world, that you won't find loyal people, sincere people who are thinking more for others and less for themselves. That's amazing. I think that having an icon in a country, if you have one or if you have many, I think that's great. That's just brilliant. It's just good luck.
Actually, also not just country, but among the Farsi-speaking region. He was famous in Tajikistan. He was famous in Afghanistan. He was famous for his Persian music, but actually he is much more famous because of reading an Islamic Arabic prayer, which is called Rabbana, and Iranians and Afghan people, and I know Tajik friends who are for years. They are waiting to break their fast in Ramadan with listening to his Rabbana.
Wow! Wow!
That is, so he was rich not just on reading Quran. He was rich not just in reading prayers. He was rich on reading the Persian literature, Attar, Rumi, Hafiz. These things, if I say somebody in Pakistan that I'm coming from Iran, mostly the first thing that people ask me is that, oh, we have read Rumi, we have read Hafiz. That is how an icon, a freedom icon, can connect himself in a region.
That's so brilliant. That is actually brilliant. That's what I said. Icons are so larger than life. Fatemeh, I'm just reading a few comments which are coming in, and I want that there's this one question which Hassan Ali has put, and I'm going to show this right over here. Hassan Ali says, which conceptual models can help educators make sense of, plan for, and facilitate change? So, okay, conceptual models.
Well, to my understanding and to my knowledge, there is no single formulation or model for change.
That's so.
I think each person has his or her own model according to her background and his background. But I think mostly what comes to change our cultural pattern are those who are changing, are shaping our beliefs, our values, our norms, and our social practice.
Yes.
That is you can keep an eye how you can make your own model of changing.
That's
but
so true.
changing, because if you and I will always say, reading, not just because now we are in Read Pakistan, seriously. If my students now are in the in your audience, they can really acknowledge that. I always talk about reading, because reading would be, it would be a trustable um, a witness, a trustable guide to your change, because you see things that you know.
True.
How you can watch things, but because you don't know about them, you don't see them, you don't get them, you don't
That's true.
understand them. The more that you read, you can change your view to the world and also to your environment. So I would really say everybody has its own model and should make the construct its own model. But watching what are the components of this cultural patterns, and secondly, by reading, because I think that was one of your guests, Ahmed Ghoreshi.
Yeah.
He was brilliant.
Yeah.
That was a brilliant talk, and I very much agree with him that you can really develop your mind by traveling or
Yes.
reading, and traveling
That,
is not possible for all, but still, but still,
yeah, and Fatemeh, when COVID is around, then traveling is all the more difficult. No, but you are so right about this, and I think Fatima, this is a brilliant answer, because I think the it's all here. It's the vision changes when you're reading. You learn so much. You're a different person altogether. That is how you swiftly change colors, and I think this is a brilliant answer, Hassan. I think very nicely answered by Fatima. We have another question. I'll just show it right here. Sami Sahel says, how have you contributed in developing reading culture in Iranian community or Iranian students? Any special activities that you have undertaken? Oh, she's a professor. What else do you expect, Sami? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to reply to that.
the last time I did teach in Iran was 2008, 2009. I'm pretty old. So with 38, I can say that my experience of teaching in Iran really backs 10 years ago. So at that time, my life has two parts: after Germany, before Germany.
Yeah, of course.
Before Germany, because I studied. Okay, I grown up in Iran. I did my bachelor and my master in Iran, and so there is. I can say a lot of stories on my book reading when I was in Iran, but I can just make it very short to tell you that I was very much into literature. I really liked reading literature, but then my reading practice would not go beyond my academic or school reading, because I think I didn't have a good guide. Seriously, I would wish a teacher would kick my ass. Sorry to be impolite, but that would, and I mean, I really wish somebody really pushed me to read books beyond my academic. I was studying in University of Tehran, so I was thinking that I did well. I mean, I'm very brilliant. So this kind of arrogance comes to us when we reach a milestone.
Yeah.
And so, but after I went to Germany, many things changed in my life. So I with saying that, I want to answer that question, that of course I would encourage my students to read books, and my only technique was having a surprise exam for them. So they read the book even without alarm. So that was my method. But after that, now coming to Germany, starting a new life, starting a love relationship, starting learning a new language, starting a PhD. Everything was new for me and frightening for me. And after some time, I learned that I have to really change my system because I don't know many things, and it's already late to read books. So that was always kind of a feeling of being guilty, that what did I do till now in my life? Why I didn't read that and that and that and that. So I started to read some main books. If there is a time, I will say the story of the books, the main important things that really shape my mind and make the main shelves of the library of my mind. But I just want to say that still now, of course, I have another story for my students to say that, look, your brain still is so young. Don't be so close-minded. Open your mind. The world is so diverse. You don't know many things. That admitted, of course, you are studying in School of International Political Science and International Relations. Quaid Azam University is one of the best universities of Pakistan, but don't be so arrogant. Don't be so closed-minded. Because the more you read, the more you realize that how much was primitive your first analysis. And especially we have a gap and we have a problem in social science and political science in the universities. Because if you study medication on engineering, it has a structure. If you don't learn it good, you will kill a patient, right?
Yes. And you don't want to do that.
But I mean, criteria is that if you don't make a good medication, you are not a good student. So that's the criteria. But if you are not a good social scientist, it takes maybe 30 years till a university or till many students and generation of students realize that you have not been a good scholar. So I mean, I just want to say that how important it is to make a structure. And so I think this story, I got good feedbacks that they read now more and they feel now that how much they don't know. But again, to measure it, we have to wait. Maybe 10 years or 10 years to see whether I really could develop their capacities of reading.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing where you're so right about that. It takes a lot of time to realize where you have been standing, where your input can give a good remuneration in return to your efforts. And yes, definitely. By the way, in the middle of they were sharing your thought process, and in the middle you just said that if we have time, we will talk more of the literature or the books that have actually formulated your development of your thoughts and the development of your mind. And that was going to be the next question that I was going to ask, that Fatemeh shared that list of books which you think have brought real change in your life. So it can be one book which you think that no, this book really played a big role, or maybe it can be more than one book, more than 4 books, 5 books, 6 books, whatever. But I want you to see, because you have come from a very interesting background. Everybody in the world knows how Iran, how antithetically juxtaposed a situation Iran has faced, how politically they have gone up and down, and all those upheavals that you have gone through, and the cultures, the social patterns. So it will be great to hear out from you which books you actually preferred.
Well, when I started, I mean, till I was 18 or 19, I was very much in love with painting, and I was very much in love with poetry. I was even writing poetry. I was in love with ancient style or traditional, like Hafiz Shirazi, Attar Neishapuri, but also contemporary ones like Shamlu, Forough Farrokhzad, Sohrab Sepehri. And I think that was a very good shape. I think that gave a good sense of understanding many musics also in Iran, and also many background of many books on novels on Iran. But I mean, as I said, before going to Germany, it's not going beyond that. Of course, when I was bachelor student, I studied journalism, communication theories was very fascinating for me. I studied American studies, so history of United States. American Promise was one of the very good books that I read. But after moving to Germany, as I told you, it was a big change in my life. Many things were new, and I got freaked out how much I don't know. And I was starting a PhD, and PhD in Germany, you don't have course. So you are alone with your dissertation. Which was not that much good for me growing up in Iran and going to that to Iranian education system that you always had to be frightened with exams. So you were the boss of your own work. For me, because I was very much fascinated to the issue of dialogue, intercultural dialogue, because I was sure that this is my issue, because dialogue, some people are very for it. Dialogue make a miracle. Dialogue would get people near to each other, would make peace among people. Everything will be a heaven with dialogue. And there were some people were totally against it. Dialogue shows weakness. If you just go have a dialogue, people think that you are frightened. Dialogue is a tool to weaken Muslim countries. So I was telling myself, if dialogue is such a thing that some people are so much in for it and so much against it, why still we hear about in international relations and in political realm, we hear about dialogue. Let's have dialogue now. Dialogue Iran Europe dialogue, Arab dialogue with Europe. What is in this dialogue that people talk about it that much? Which function it can have? So for that, I was very much on different discourses of dialogue among civilizations, dialogue of cultures. And of course, one of them was Samuel Huntington, Clash of Civilizations. So the first book I got in my hand was Clash of Civilization of Huntington, reading it. And quickly after that, I read, I'm really happy that I had a good guide, which was my supervisor at that time. And say, not just Samuel Huntington, Fatemeh, you have to read also critics to Huntington.
Yes. That's so very important.
Not just Huntington, but also I read that one, that was The New Crusade. I don't remember who was the editor, but it was a collection of articles. For example, Edward Said, for example, Roy Mutahedeh. They were very, very good. And after that, I read book of Amartya Sen, Identity and Violence, a very brilliant Indian writer who really had a very good critique of Huntington. That was kind of three main books that I read in the first year of being in Germany. I mean, I read other books, but I cannot remember the names. But these gave me a framework that not everything in a book I can believe. I should believe. I should read critically. Because if somebody says that here is the word, here is the map of the civilizations, there are Amartya Sen who says, wait a minute, what is the criteria of making these civilizations and these borders? How can you say that, for example, Iran is among this Islamic culture, and you just forget about, for example, pre-Islamic civilization in Iran, which shape the philosophy of Mir Damad and Allame Tabatabai is so good. It's not Islamic philosophy. It is actually we say Oriental
Yeah.
philosophy. So there should be something else to shape the civilization and culture in this region, and you cannot just call it Islamic. You cannot just call Pakistan Islamic culture because it's shaped also by Buddhism, by Sikh, right? By even
Yeah.
Christian culture. So
Yeah.
you see, when you just read Book of Huntington, you say, brilliant, very good mapping. And Huntington is actually very brilliant to convince. But
Yes.
if you are not enough rich in your reading, you cannot critically read. So I can go on more on more books that I read.
Yes, but those are so influential books, and I completely agree with you because Huntington is, yes, he's quite influential, but in the middle you also took name of Edward Said. And frankly speaking, Fatima, when I went through Edward Said, I went through a couple of his books. One of them was Culture and Imperialism, and so otherwise as well, because he had a lot of articles and a lot of research that he did on so many topics, basically focusing upon a lot of culture and imperialism and how Muslims have been reacted upon and how they react to certain things and so on and so forth. So the topic goes on. But yes, you are so right, because all these people, these, I would say, scholarly dignitaries, they have actually changed the real face of reading. And yes, they must have left a great impact on your mind as well. Because when I was sort of growing up and reading Edward Said, not too many people were reading him, or even for that matter, Huntington, not too many people were reading him. And honestly speaking, they did change one shade of my mental development. So this is really, really brilliant. Fatima, I also want you to comment on this, please, remark right here. In how many ways language barrier affect the reading culture? There's a question from Muhammad Suleiman Ali. Persian literature is richest one, but language is a hurdle in seeking knowledge from original Persian texts. I know that you have explained it a bit, but I think he wants to know a little more about this. If you can just simply reply to Muhammad Suleiman.
I really like this question. Because this is very deep question. It's about how we get a story in the second language, but being sure that we got it. And this is very important. Goethe, Wolfgang Goethe of Germany, 400 years after Hafiz was dead, started to read, to learn, to come to learn that there are some Arabic countries and also Iran. And also, he was so in love with this literature, and he found Hafiz, and then he just told himself he should learn Persian, because he was seeing that he cannot get this point very clearly on just translation, and he becomes so good. I'm not sure he become good at Persian, but I mean this attempt to see and to look inside, and then I'm sure you know that he then after that wrote a book of Divan Sharqi wa Gharbi, Uslish und Westliche Divan. So it's very important. It's very important, and translation cannot say whole story. Although there are some good translators, I just think that by practice, by knowing the translators, we can do it better. In some languages, translators are so good. I've read it more, and I also, if I didn't have a direct story of Haruki Murakami himself, I would not trust it. Some translators are so good because they know their own culture so good. They know the language of of the host country so good. Sorry, the guest country so good that they can have a good. Actually, what they create is actually a new creation, which has most of the soul of the original things. I would personally love the translations of Farsi translations of books of Haruki Murakami of Japan more than English books and German books of Haruki Murakami. Because in Iran, there are really some good translators. For Haruki Murakami now, the publisher should think about 2, 3, 4 good translators to give them, because it's very popular. And Haruki Murakami himself, I don't know whether you know about this story, because Haruki Murakami himself was not an author. I think he turned to be author when he was 40. And he started writing in English and then translating his own English to Japanese, because he did not feel comfortable with Japanese language, because Japanese language, I don't know Japanese language, but he says it's very indirect. It's very indirect. And he likes English literature, English language, because it's very direct. It's simple. So he realized that he cannot publish it in English because his English was not enough good to publish it in English. But he made the first version, and then he translated it in Japan. And the first book that he published got a global award. His first award is for his first book, right? So you see, the languages have different capacities. So I hope that I didn't confuse you. Firstly, translation. Secondly, there are some good translations. Thirdly, there is some languages have good capacity that even the writer himself take it as a first medium.
That is so true. I, as a linguist myself, because I did my MPhil in linguistics, so I realized that yes, linguistic patterns in every language, they're something that they're going to help you out, but they're also the ones that sort of complicate the situation. Depth of each language is different. It's relevant, and we can best understand this because we might just have a couple of Pakistani viewers over here. They can actually relate it with Iqbal, Mulana Iqbal, Muhammad Ali Iqbal, and basically what happened was that when you start reading Iqbal, you realize that at the end of it, you want a proper translation, but you will not get it because the depth of the language is quite different. It's quite relevant, but it's quite different because it's different for each language. So yes, as a linguist, I would understand what you're saying. Fatemeh, we also have, we have a few comments. Like for instance, people are appreciating over here, saying that this session is going good. Zakir is actually showing a thumbs up for the session, and so I'm definitely sure that he was listening to you. So I know that you have you have a passion for literature and you have a passion for social sciences, and I want that you should talk more of the social patterns that have left impact on your mind. Now, keeping that in mind, I know that you're quite an adamant reader, so I want that. Tell us, is it literature? Because I see that your beginning is from literature, but then you moved slowly and gradually into, of course, because of your work, because of your coursework and your thesis, you moved more into the region of politics. Do you think, while you're sitting just alone, all by yourself, what do? Pick up a literature book or pick up something which is more related with reality?
Definitely literature. Definitely.
Oh yeah, literature, because I know that comes from inside you.
But saying that, I changed all my career to the direction of culture, because this is something that I can live with. my passion in my work is cultural diplomacy, is intercultural dialogue, is actually making people of the world close to each other. And this is not a motto. It's really it is possible.
Yes.
People of the, I mean, politicians are unable to connect the people of the world without begging, asking, please, a person who is good in organizing cultural events, help me. Because culture, people, of course, that economy play a role.
Yeah.
Of course, that military play a role. Of course, that politics play a role. But you cannot convince people to like something. Impossible. Impossible. Just through literature, you can understand that you can have two reading of Pakistan in Iran, two readings of Iran in Pakistan. You know, of course, people follow the news and are worried about tensions in the Persian Gulf right now. You know, Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and whatever. But this is the same Iran that when I introduce myself, I'm from Iran. People say, "Oh, my grandfather was in Shiraz. I was in Mashhad. I know Hafiz. I know Rumi." I was just telling my husband, who is German, that I don't know without Rumi and Hafiz, what should I do? I mean, this is the first thing. This is the first thing. We just don't have electricity here.
Oh, it's okay. I can see you very clearly. I'm sure that the rest of the people can see you
So
as well.
just through the literature, we make connections, and this is timeless, and this is potential of connection. So still, I think it's my career, as much as I can, and I really try, is making it near to cultural. If it's development, cultural aspect of development. If it's diplomacy, cultural aspect of diplomacy. So definitely, I would go for culture. I mean, when I want to see, the books around me are novels. Nobody is taking everything. Okay, nobody is taking book of theories besides the book. In time of reading, in time of sleeping, you would not take a serious book. You would take literature.
That's so true. That's so true. When I was doing my thesis, I remember invigorating the pest technology, which is the pest analysis, which includes the politics, the economy, the social side, the social aspect, and then technology. And all these would amalgamate into something which would form eventually the culture. So I know where exactly you're coming from. At the end of the day, it's all about culture. And now I would like to ask two more questions. I know we have very limited time, but I'm sure that you're going to deal it quite well, because I want you to comment on reading, how reading is going to change the cultural pattern. What do you think? Because yes, I'm talking about the pest, analysis, or how we deal with so many factors around in society. But I want you to, have a look at it in a way that how reading itself as a habit, how that can change the cultural patterns of any society. Because I know for a fact that you being in Iran has gone through that. Then you went to Germany, and mashallah, you saw a lot of change there in your personality as well, around in the environment too. And now you're here in Pakistan. So, brilliant shift of cultural patterns was there. So tell us more how reading can affect that.
I just say my story, which is going through Iranian, leaving Iranian culture, leaving German culture, and I'm so happy that now more than 1 year I have a chance of living Pakistani culture. However, one can say that Islamabad is not whole Pakistan, but I have used any opportunity to travel around. So I would say, okay, I'm not a book reader by blood. I told you, I'm
Yes.
not. I am trying to discipline myself to read books, and I'm still struggling. Because I see how reading is changing my worldview. I told you that cultural patterns will change through how you change your belief, your values, your norms, and your social practices. I think by my belief or my values and reading books, more books in this journey that I made till now, enriched it, didn't change it. Of course, I added to the norm. For example, I have no, I mean, now I discipline myself to read. But what really changed it, and I take it as a most change in my cultural patterns, is changing my worldview. I just changed the window to the world. I think literally I stopped generalizing. I stopped saying Germans are racist, Pakistanis or whatever you hear, Islamist fundamentalists. I stopped to say Iranians are terrorists. I had a chance by reading Iran after I leave Iran. Because you might say that I'm Pakistani, I know everything about Pakistan. I promise when you get distance, you start to read Pakistan. Yes. And that happened for me. And I started also to read Germany by history, because you are not attached to history. You are not attached to history. The peace now you are living in Germany didn't come at once. You have to read the history. You see that what happened at least after the Second World War. How students in their schools are reading about Holocaust. I mean, damn, they are criticizing themselves. They are making themselves guilty. It's brilliant in the world. So I really think that the most important thing happened for me. I really stopped generalizing, or I'm very cautious when I want to judge. Brilliant. Because and also seriously, I just sometimes people ask me something and I say I don't know. I just I make myself more clear that there are these and these and these things I don't know about it. Because social topics are things that even the taxi driver is talking about. And he should talk about it. He must talk about it. But then the medication issue is not something that everybody can talk. Yeah. So there should be a difference between the taxi driver and Fatemeh. Because nobody is going to criticize him. But people coming after me if I say something wrong. You see?
Yes, I know that for a fact. I know that yes, the more higher you are, and the more I think the more you face public, the more vulnerable you become. And yes, that is actually true, because then the criticism comes in as if people would just take you as as somebody who's just there, and you can be criticized even though it might just not be right. And yes, you are right, and there has to be some demarcation between a person who is ahead of a lot. And of course, for your Fatemeh, for you, I would rather say that yes, because you are facing a lot of students as well. You are facing people who are thinking, who are trying to go into, they're in the scholarly notion right in front of you, and you're facing them every day. So it becomes really, really difficult, or really taxing at times as well, because you're being judged. So yes, I have this comment from Momina. I'm going to share this over here on the screen. And she says, I recently read somewhere that if different communities focus on the similarities in the difficulties they face rather than the similarities of their culture, the former would serve to bring them closer than the later would. As someone who is from the field of cultural diplomacy, what are your views on that?
Well, well, I just go through because till the question, it was a nice comment. When we talk about when we want to get people more to like each other, mention and we emphasize on their similarities. But still, Iranians are different from Pakistanis, and Pakistanis are different from Germans. Even the similarity is that all three countries' people are in love with freedom, or they have a faith to their own nation. So this is a similarity. But what comes to a cultural diplomacy can take it is that it can be one of the tactics of bringing it to the nice image of the country, because whole the cultural diplomacy is about making a lovely image for a country abroad. So that means that we should have a policy that so if Pakistan unfortunately is famous in the world because of the tensions and because of the violence and fundamentalism, this is because the bad news, because the good news is bad news. But still, it comes that we don't have a good cultural diplomacy. We, as people who work for Pakistan's good, we have to have a policy to emphasize how colorful is this culture, how nice is Qawwali music, how nice is colorful dressing of women of this region, how nice is Urdu, Pashto, and Baluchi literature. You know, if we don't have a plan to make this image for ourselves, we cannot complain that the world doesn't know us with our nice culture, because we didn't offer it. And this is other countries is doing well. I mean, even by McDonald's or British Council, you hear these words. They are working on their culture. And Iran and Pakistan and many other countries, which unfortunately they have a lot of difficulties, that culture is not their priority, are suffering for that. So of course we have similarities in our culture, but when it comes to making a nice image for ourselves, we are not able to plan it.
Yes, very true. I think we were, you know, just prior to this, you were talking about how we develop our statements, our sentiments about a country when we move out of the country. Very frankly speaking, Fatemeh, I had this experience that I started reading Tariq Rahman. He's a national writer. He's written a couple of books, and I think recently when we met at your place, and I remember we talking about it as well.
Yes.
So and that actually changed my notion for Pakistan. And one after the other, I started, you know, I kept reading his books, thinking that, you know, this is the kind of image about Pakistan which I've never looked at. You know, so yes, you are so right about that, because you must be experiencing the same thing in Iran, which I experienced here in Pakistan. The more books I read, the different I started thinking of Pakistan. And then when I represented at different platforms, when I represented Read Pakistan at different platforms, or even just visited to UK or to USA and to other countries, I realized that you know, we need to know more of Pakistan, and we need to deliver more about Pakistan, and not that image which people are creating for us. We need to create our own image, and that was really important. Fatemeh, just, I know that, you know, the time's ticking away. I want you to say a few things. Okay, I really want you to say a few things about Read Pakistan. Not just the good things. Let me clear this up. The bad things, even the ones that you think that should be set straight in Read Pakistan, those ones, and also the good ones, if you want. So just a few lines about Read Pakistan.
Of course, I should thank one of the friends with name Qaisar Nawab, if I'm correct with his name. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful that he was the reason that I get to know Read Pakistan. And it was so good that I couldn't believe that. It was the beginning. I came to Islamabad, and I was so happy that you have been so active. Firstly, to realize this problem of reading, because again we have a lot to do in Pakistan on term of literacy, in term of making and building libraries, and also a culture of reading books, storytelling in the primary schools, reading. I mean also I face a lot of problems convincing my own students to read books. It's coming from the culture. We have to improve the culture of reading. And I think what is Read Pakistan doing is like a miracle. It's like, seriously, like somebody not just realizing the problem, but also doing and putting all the potentials that we can together to do this cultural work. And I really respect, and I hope that I hope that you get more. You force us more to work for you. I mean, I don't know how can I formulate it. I know that we are facing. Of course. I always think about it. I always to see international programs. I think that where can Read Pakistan stands, but unfortunately, we faced this pandemic, and we could not really, we could not be fruitful. I'm so pissed off with this pandemic, because I just 3 months after I started my work in Pakistan, I had to go to home and stay at home. So I know that there are some general problems and there are global problems of working, but I'm really thankful to you, Fatemeh, because of doing this inspiring initiative. It's really wonderful. It's really wonderful, not because I want to be nice. Seriously, I think this is you did a very, very good host in different speaks that you did with different influential people, and you took very good information from them. That's one of the very good models of digital Read Pakistan, and I think Read Pakistan should be really proud of you. And of course, the last but not the least advantage of Read Pakistan for me was reaching a good friend like Fatemeh. It's just seriously, it's just, I'm so happy that I have you, and I have very few friends in the world, and it's and I'm a very bad mood person, despite the smile that I make. But you are the person who can also go through bad people who even have bad moods. So thank you for your existence.
Oh, and thank you, Fatemeh. That was so kind. I think your appreciation would actually genuinely go to our Cyber Read team, actually, because they're the ones who make so many things happen. And with, just a click of fingers, I'm just there with so many people who can see me, but behind me there is so much effort, and I'm personally really grateful to my team as well, and to you, Fatemeh. You know that I truly love you. Thank you so very much for being here with me. I am so grateful to you. I know, and I knew it even before that I could drag you anytime. But seriously, I wanted you to come to this platform to let people know. And I know this session is just not going to be enough because I want people to know more about you. They would understand how you have tangled three different cultures, and you have placed very beautifully all the amalgamation inside your personality, and it's really, really impressive. It's not just that because I'm saying it because you're my friend. I'm saying it because I know for a fact that you're a person who should be cherished, and a person who has all three shades very nicely well knit together. So thank you very much, Fatemeh, for your time this evening, and I'll be catching up with you. Thank you.